Join us as I sit down with Christian Delgado, Matt Moseley, and 3 teenagers from our student ministries. We'll talk about summer camp and various discipleship opportunities at Grace students. I'm your host, Aaron Miller, pastor of equipping at Grace Baptist Church in Santa Clarita, California. Welcome to Magnify.
Test, checking, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Test.
5.5, dispensationalism.
Oh, please stop.
I know.
Please stop.
You know, there's still a work in the process to get him out of this rhythm.
I know that you had lunch with Jared the other day. I feel like I need to have a follow-up lunch on that lunch and just really I don't even know what you talked about, but just to galvanize a few things. Like, hey, bud, let's...
Total depravity.
Say, check, mic check.
Check.
Now bust a rap.
Check.
Oh, I can't do
Check.
that.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, brother.
1, 2. Check me out right here, yo. The sun don't shine forever.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know the lyrics.
We need an Aaron Miller rap album, dude. Gospel
Wow.
rap.
That's actually, though, that's impressive.
It opens with the Rocky music. What? Sarah, come on. You got to recognize, like, anytime I do something that maybe overreaches or is not going to work, I look to Sarah and her facial expression as to whether or not that's going to be edited out. If Sarah suddenly starts scribbling something down on the pad of paper or her face is downcast, I'm like, okay.
We're all in youth ministry. We've all done youth ministry, been in youth ministry, at least for a little bit in life. What is the cringiest youth ministry? Something about culture. What's the most cringiest that you've
Something
ever experienced?
about culture?
Yeah, either culture or game that you did or summer camp
can I tell you
activity.
something?
Yeah.
All the years that I did youth ministry, what you're asking, I was so bad at. I just wasn't good. I wasn't creative enough. And so I got interns and volunteer staff, and I relied upon the skills of other people to think creatively about those things because I'm boring. Quite frankly, I'm just a boring guy. I don't have a lot going on. And so I enjoyed discipling and getting up and teaching. All that to say, there were plenty of games and plenty of like icebreaker activities that I thought it was all pretty lame, but like that's because it's me, and so it doesn't really mean it's cringe. It's just, but I've never lost a kid on a retreat. I've never left a kid at camp. None of those things. I did have to. I know this is not what you're asking, but I did have to. Some of the cringiest stuff I had to get involved with was break up a good number of fights, like actual physical fights that would happen at camps and retreats. You take 17-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid. Not that you're kids, you're young adults. I'm so sorry. You deprive them of enough sleep and give them enough caffeine, bad things happen.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's true. I think one of the most interesting things that I've found myself viewing the students, and kind of me getting older too, is nomenclature and just words and slang nowadays is so much more different. So like back when I was in high school, it was steez, swag. We would call like a hangout, a kickback. And then now it's like transitioning to help me out. Like, whenever you're doing something well, it's like, let's cook. Like you're getting cooked right now.
Yeah, cook has like a number of different meanings based off
so
of circumstance.
strange.
It's so weird.
The one that honestly like gets me riled up inside because I'm just like, this just doesn't work is when they call like a hangout a function. And
Oh, you don't like that?
That grinds my gears, dude. I'm like, why?
Well, hey, so does this also apply to cultural references? So you'll apply a reference to a song or a show or piece of entertainment, and they're all going like, what are you talking about?
Maybe not like with TV shows, but I kind of know what's going on. I'm still around. I'm still younger. I'm not getting that.
Well, for
old,
me, I realized something had shifted in the atmosphere when I was making like Saved by the Bell references, and people are coming up to me and like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, I've been in this game too long."
Yes.
Now they don't know what I'm talking. I don't know how to relate, And that happened around 2014, 2015.
Yeah. Well, actually, the cool thing about at least we're so connected that I could talk about some things that are going on because people are always redoing my generation's things.
Yeah, for sure.
So like I think of like Avatar, like that's big right now. Avatar: The Last Airbender, and that's like super big right now.
Yeah.
But that was my generation,
Yeah.
and that's because we grew up with
Thank you.
social media becoming a thing.
Well, folks, thanks for joining us for another episode of Magnify. I'm sitting down with Christian Delgado and Matt Moseley and some students in our student ministry, and I thought this would be a fun episode to include them. Primarily, going to be talking to you guys, but then occasionally we're going to kick it over to the students and see if they're actually agreeing with how you're assessing their generation. Is that fair?
That's kind of stressful.
So we have Matt Moseley and
Scared,
Christian
yeah.
Delgado. Christian, a little bit about yourself in terms of what you oversee. Grace Family knows you somewhat already, but just describe kind of what you do on staff.
Yeah, I have the pleasure of directing junior high and high school ministry. I primarily get to teach in high school. I love getting to hang out with the 9th through 12th graders. I enjoy our senior hangouts. I enjoy our hang times. One of the blessings that I get to do is get paid to have fun and also teach the Bible, which is my fun. So I'm very thankful to do that.
And then, of course, we have Matt Moseley, who's on staff. Matt, you want to give a little description about who you are and what you do?
Yeah.
First time you've been on the podcast.
First timer. Yeah. I mean, I've been at the church now for close to 5 years, getting close to that.
Yeah.
I worked in the entertainment industry my whole life, and then I got saved, went over to Masters University, studying pastoral ministry. And so I am one of the 2 student ministry associates that is currently on staff. I primarily teach junior high, so that just means, a lot of discipleship efforts for the young men of the Grace Student Ministry in junior high. So it's the greatest labor that I've ever loved.
Yeah. So we should mention your associate, your partner in crime, right? Katie James, who recently was put on staff. But when we planned out this podcast, she was not yet hired. But we're going to actually have Katie and her husband on again in an episode, so you'll be able to meet her for sure. And then Christian, could you share what other guests we have here?
Yeah, I got the crew here. So this is sitting right next to me. His name is Andrew. Can you say what's up, Andrew?
What's up?
What grade are you in, dude?
11th.
11th grade?
You want to hold the microphone there?
Appreciate you.
So, Andrew, tell us what school you go to, how long you've been living in Santa Clarita, and coming to Grace.
Yeah, so I've been going to Grace since I was in 4th grade, and I go to Saugus High School, and I've been in Santa Clarita my whole life.
Sweet. Thanks for being here, man.
Of course.
And this is Alessandra.
Hello.
Alessandra, how long have you been coming to Grace?
I have been coming to Grace since I was 4 years old, around there.
Baby.
Yeah, I was little.
And now what grade are you in?
I'm in 12th grade, so I'm a senior.
What school?
Saugus High School.
Saugus High School. Okay.
Mhm.
2 for 2.
2 for 2.
Yeah.
And then
Hello.
I was gonna do the whole saying of surely, or what is it? Not last, or
Last
but
surely
not least.
last but not least.
Yeah.
Goodness, I am not good with colloquial phrases. I'm
You
so
gotta
sorry.
do.
Continue.
That's
please.
as old as Shakespeare, by the way. That's fine.
I just don't remember phrases. I'm so sorry. Please continue.
I'm Rachel. I'm a senior at Castaic High School, and I've been coming to Grace since the middle of 4th grade. I've lived in Santa Clarita my whole life.
That's awesome. I'm so thankful you guys are here. Glad we get to hang out together.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So again, occasionally I'm just going to ask you all to weigh in on something and give these guys a little poke in the ribs as to whether they're getting it right or not.
You're
right?
our lie detector test, essentially. That's what you guys are.
Actually, that's not part of our generation. Thank you so much, Christian.
Probably will happen multiple times.
Yes.
I might cry. On
It's
the
of course
podcast.
correct. I realize how difficult youth ministry is, especially when you leave it and then you come back to speak at. Like I spoke at Hume a few years ago. It was like week 5 in 2019, and I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Like I was in the middle of preaching, and on the front row, there's like a group of kids playing Texas Hold'em. And
No
I'm like, "Are you
way, dude.
serious? What are you doing?" And so I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not a Grace, you know? So I just like, I was not connecting at all. Anyway, that was
You're like, you should fold.
yeah, dude, it's like that. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
He's lying. Yeah. Now, speaking of camp, this is something that I did back east, and actually this is how Jared Burkholder and I met. We started doing our own camps. We weren't going to, say, the Young Life camps or another camp setting where they would run it. We were running our own, and that was a lot of work for sure. You, as a staff, you've recently started doing that, and so you're already preparing for what's the week of camp? June
17th to the 21st.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All
We're
right,
ready
so-
for that.
So the plans, how are they coming?
The plans are going. We have our theme. It's called Hope for Tomorrow. We're very excited to look at how the future hope of a believer, looking at the kingdom of God and the new heavens and the new earth and having resurrected bodies, how that has impact on us today that provides us a hope for tomorrow. We're excited to go through that with the students. And I think the best thing about running our own camp is we get to set the pace. And one of the things that I really enjoyed about Heartland was where we got to just spend time kind of doing whatever we wanted. It wasn't as like scheduled where it was bam, 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 thing.
Yeah.
But it was, oh, you want to go shoot some hoops at the basketball court in the gym? You want to go play some ping pong? Do we want to stay up and just hang out for a little bit?
It is nice when we have a lot of ad hoc activity that you can kind of speak into, settle in, get to know people relationally. So this will be the second year then?
Second year, yeah. The first year was the pilot year, and we were excited to do it again.
You survived it.
We did survive it. I mean, the one hiccup was the girls' bus.
Broke down twice.
Do we have testimony,
Oh
ladies?
my
Yeah.
goodness, yes.
How did that happen? What went down?
You guys lived to tell the tale.
Share with us. What
It
happened?
was basically, it broke down, I don't know, like an hour out of Santa Clarita.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we were sitting on the bus for an hour. And then we got a different bus. And then it broke down again because we couldn't get up the hill to go to Heartland.
Yeah.
Then we were waiting for like 2 hours to get up the hill. We had to end up taking cars. Like everyone had to
Yeah, there was like
individually
a
go in a
convoy
car. Yeah.
that would go back and forth and bring you guys in groups.
This is a wonderful promotion piece for summer
Dude.
camp.
Oh, yeah. It was,
yeah.
I mean, it's just real.
What did
dude.
you all do on the bus then? Just sit there and, I mean, what did you do?
A few people brought like things to crochet. So I spent a lot of my time making little crochet balls,
Okay.
like spinning the yarn around like a small ball and making it bigger.
Riveting.
That took a few hours.
Sure. You get real creative in those moments.
It
Yeah,
was.
my goodness.
It was sweet though. It was nice to just like I went and grabbed like ice cream and drinks, and I brought them to all the girls just hanging out. They were such good troopers too.
Every youth ministry has the bus story.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
fun.
Okay, so you're in year 2. Where are you in the planning process? So you have a camp. That's a big one. We're bringing other students who are all living here in the area.
Yeah.
Registration is up, I imagine.
Registration is live. The planning is essentially all the foundational components to camp is done.
Yep.
Now it's planning the actual scheduling, the activities, and
Right.
what are we going to do, getting all the supplies and the materials for the games, for the pamphlets for all our students to take notes in, so stuff like that.
What are you going to do?
Yeah, I think one of the most famous that we constantly bring back is Kajabi, Can. I mean, that's always a game classic, but the students like it. They get into it. Particularly, I would say, like you normally would think it's only the guys, but I've seen Rachel out on the field and
Well,
she...
Alessandra gave Rachel a look. I don't know what's going on there. Like, is there a story?
Y'all get into
Is there a
it.
story?
There have been quite a few injuries, I feel like, in the past.
I know.
Lots
Again,
of tears.
a wonderful way to promote summer camp so
Yeah.
far.
Oh,
broken
yeah.
down buses.
No,
and-
I usually stay, I
Injuries?
opt out of Kajabi. I know I'll
It's
get flown
brutal.
around. I'm a small person, so I will literally go flying.
You can. I mean,
Yeah.
You
get
do
in
go flying, even if you're not small.
Exactly right. It'll toss you around. So what happened to you, Rachel? Like, she gave
I
you a
don't-
look like you
I
did
don't
something.
know what Christian's remembering. I've never played Kajabi.
You've never played Kajabi?
It was the Marcelins. They got very competitive.
Yes.
They do
Yeah.
get...
They,
Yes.
that was intense
Ava.
to watch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
strap up. They put on the pads. They, the
Kids get
wrist
prepped.
wraps.
It is all about honor there
my
with
goodness.
Kajabi.
It is pretty insane.
The gladiator ring. Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, so I mean, we're planning games, we're planning nighttime activities.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we did last year was, I don't even remember what the game was called, but it was essentially the students were sent out into groups to go collect little neon. What?
We have, I don't know, we have some responses.
This is cringing.
I lost my phone for like an hour during that game.
During that game.
Yeah, because we were going across the bridge and it fell out of my pocket.
So you got
That's
it back?
hilarious.
I did end up getting it back. It was just in the bushes. It did not fall on the bridge, luckily.
Did you have people calling it and trying to find it? And
There's no service.
There was no service.
There's no
up there.
service up there at all.
okay, maybe I'm a dinosaur. Then like, why have the phone?
I think just
I
like
had
to like
pictures.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm
Yeah.
getting like, you stupid old man. There's so many reasons why you have
They're like, you don't need Wi-Fi for everything.
You don't know anything. I'm like, that's probably true.
Wait, how'd you lose your phone?
It was in my pocket and I was running and obviously you can't see anything. I had a flashlight because also you can use a flashlight
Okay,
on
you
your
need a
phone.
flashlight. Okay.
Yeah.
That's true, yeah.
But I don't know why I wasn't using my phone. I was using a different flashlight. But we were running. It was like this bridge thing. And then I like stopped. The game was like, you can't get caught by
a person with a flashlight.
Yeah.
by the
So I
person.
It was
think there was a
Ghost Hunter or
flashlight
something. I don't
there.
know, yeah.
There was
Ghost.
someone had a flashlight and then like our group got split up, and so then I had to stop and wait for them.
Yeah.
And then like when I stopped, I think my phone flew.
Dude,
out of my
that's a
pocket.
real thing though in terms of panic. You lose your phone, you're like, a piece of me is gone.
Yeah.
My identity, my security.
Especially with this generation.
Who's going to find it? Oh no, totally. But you know, even my generation, we've
100%.
been so accustomed to having everything on that device.
Yeah.
You lose it, you panic.
Yeah. And you have that weird sense of like something is missing.
For me,
Until you remember that you've
I mean,
lost your phone.
come on,
Yeah.
guys. You walk out the door, it's like three things, right?
Keys, wallet,
Keys,
phone.
wallet, phone.
Yeah. You're missing
I'm
something.
always
you
doing like
freak
the
out. Yeah.
patting it down. Okay, got them all. We're good to go.
That for me, ironically, is probably the most terrifying aspect, I think, of camp. It doesn't matter wherever I go. If I'm at like a hotel or something, I'm always terrified that I'm going to leave something behind and that I'll never be able to get it back.
Like a student.
No, not like a student. No, that please bring your kids to camp with us. Yeah, no, I'm always like that. So I do like triple, quadruple checks of just everything in our room before we leave camp. It's crazy.
Yeah. What are some of the, like, I know this first person because I did youth ministry for so long. It's the things that like suddenly you're up at midnight because some kid's having an allergic reaction. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm up. Let's go. That's why we brought nurses and doctors with our
Yeah.
team. And
Yeah. I think the best things about camp is the time and space to simply be together,
yes.
where we have the late night conversations out
Mm-hmm.
on the deck. Or I so desperately want to go to bed, but I also love how all the students are talking in their cabins and they're laughing
Right,
with
yeah.
one another. And so that time it really is precious, and
Yes.
it all contributes to community building and belonging to one another. But it's all also like, as leaders, we always think about the ways where we can bring it back to, okay, how does this relate
Yes.
to who we are in Christ? How does this relate to how we can be faithful according to what Scripture has called us to?
Right.
And that back and forth of fun and
Yeah.
intentional discipleship is the best part of camp that I don't think you could really get
Right.
anywhere else.
And what you can plan is the
Yeah.
easy part. It's all the unplanned moments that we're talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So I know you and your leadership, your volunteer staff, I know what you're doing. I mean, you're on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's for the stuff that will pop in out of nowhere. Again, like, you know, someone got a splinter or they're in their nurse's station, or it's like those wonderful opportunities. Could be around a campfire,
Yep.
or, you know, you're just talking with the guys or the gals at the end of a session, and it's unplanned, it's unhurried, it's ad hoc and organic. But that's the stuff that when, you know, they're in college or they're in young adulthood, they look back upon, and that still has an echo effect.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Right? It's still sowing seeds that will grow into fruit. And
Yes.
that's what we're praying for that entire week.
And I have a story to that effect, especially last year at camp. You know, there's this area at Heartland where you kind of go up onto like a rock enclave where there's this big cross. And because it's the middle of nowhere, basically, you know, you look up into the night sky and there's no light pollution. It was like me and then my other cabin leader, and we took our boys up there, and we just had them just look up at the stars and just be like, this is what your creator made. And it's like that ability for them to just be removed for a week from the school culture and from their phones, it really does a number on them to sort of refresh them to what's actually important about their faith.
Yeah.
Especially at such a young age where their minds are being molded. You want them to be able to have that exposure to being out in God's creation and being able to experience that. And they can't put a price on
That's right.
on
And
moments like that.
You can't really, I mean, you can, but it's hard to create here.
Yeah.
You know, you have the space, you have the opportunity, and stepping into then
Yeah.
that space and opportunity is where a really great ministry is sown. Andrew, I'm curious, did you go to camp last year?
No, sir. No, I've never been.
Are you going to go this year at all?
It depends. I think I'm going to senior year, so it just depends if my family's probably doing anything on the summer.
Yeah, and I know that being involved in youth ministry, you do experience exposure to people coming back with stories and how effective it was and all of that. And by the way, Andrew, I'll come back to you. That is another benefit of you all running your own camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. You're not going to another camp where they put on the programming and they provide the theme and the teaching that you may or may not be able to use year round in any sort of way. But the benefit of you doing what you're doing is you're able to then kind of weave it into and integrate into the rest of the year.
Exactly.
Did you find that to be the case?
Oh yeah, we for sure. I mean, the students are going to see who are going up to camp with us this year is we were intentional and focusing on the theme of hope all year, hope and identity. and how that has interwoven in all of our teaching series on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings to have this great culmination of looking at the future.
And that's a wonderful thing, because you do have students, Andrew, such as yourself, that maybe you weren't able to make camp or wasn't able to happen for whatever reason. They have football, they have family travel.
Yeah.
But when you come back and you integrate the teaching and the discipleship rhythm throughout the rest of the year, someone like Andrew, who wasn't able to go, can still, I think, experience something that is connected to that week of camp. And so I'm going to pivot here off of camp for a second. How do you all do your weekly rhythm of discipleship? Because there's a lot of touching points.
Yeah.
You have, count them with me, you have Wednesday night.
Yep.
You have Sunday morning.
Yep.
And then you have Sunday night grace groups. Is that what you call them, right? And so how do you then juggle a Wednesday night venue, a Sunday morning venue, and a Sunday night venue? And what are the differences between those three opportunities?
You have to think ahead, right? In this ministry, you really have to think ahead and plan, I would say, always like a month in advance.
Yes.
And that's what I've always tried like for our team to do is what is coming up next month so that we could at least have a grasp on what we're doing. Because all throughout the week we have the pleasure of doing all three jobs in some ways of administration, event planning, teaching the Bible, and meeting with our students, right? So I have the pleasure of like hanging out with Andrew every Tuesday, but like that's all at the cusp of I'm trying to prep for a Wednesday sermon also. Those are my two things. Is I'm meeting with students on Tuesday and I'm prepping a sermon for Wednesday. Whereas on Monday, I'm meeting with all like the team. I'm meeting with a bunch of people, whether internally in staff or I'm meeting with people externally for camp and stuff like that.
And so, Andrew, you and Christian are meeting for like discipleship?
Oh, yeah. Just getting wisdom from him. And I guess that would be a form of discipling, but just growing closer to God and each other. And,
I'm assuming you're not skipping school. This is after school.
No, after school, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
You got to caveat that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's after school.
Everyone signs up for discipleship and get to, skip on out. But no, you're meeting with students after. And so what does that look like when you disciple students?
So I put it on them to say like, hey, what do you want to do? Right? You want to hang out with me? I'm so glad I want to hang out with you, but do you want to go through the Bible together? Do you just want to kind of just hang out and talk? Like I'm good for both of those. If you want to go through a book together. And what I've actually loved is not every student's the same. Sure. And so you'll get different things. Whereas Andrew, he's a very analytical dude. And so he'll ask questions of me and we'll just kind of rabbit trail for a whole hour of random conversations. Like what were we talking about? We were talking about ordering drinks and first impressions.
Ordering drinks?
Yeah, Starbucks drinks.
Like a Starbucks? Okay.
Yeah, Starbucks drinks.
And what that indicates about that person?
Yes.
Okay.
That's exactly. Yeah. I'm so surprised that you've had this conversation before.
Well, I have, only because my wife and I kind of laugh at, I only have what we call trucker stop coffee, black coffee.
Right.
I have nothing to throw at the situation.
Yeah.
So people have like, an order that's as long as the U.S. Constitution. I'm kind of like, what's going on there? Like, what is that about?
Venti macchiato with
we
cold
gotta explore
foam
that.
and caramel drizzle. Yeah.
Yeah. Andrew, you just kind of have questions and you're thinking through life and like you accumulate some of these experiences or moments and then you're just kind of interacting on those issues with Christian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and discipleship has so many different forms, and depending on how the person is bent emotionally or with maturity, and that's sometimes the beauty of what it is we get to do in discipleship.
Hey friends, Christian Delgado here, Director of Student Ministries. We want to invite all junior high and high schoolers to this year's summer camp at Heartland Christian Camps from June 17th through the 21st. We will be spending the entire week looking at our hope for tomorrow as Christ followers. Since Christ is raised from the dead, our hope is firmly established, knowing that Jesus has the victory over sin and death and will come to conquer it all in the end. We're going to have a great week building memories, so to register and get more information, visit gracebaptist.org/summercamp. We are excited to see you there.
So then what is a Wednesday night? Walk me through, what is that moment?
Yeah. Well, Wednesday night is really just sort of, I wouldn't say necessarily like a relaxed version of a Sunday morning, because I mean, I think it's just more welcoming and inviting. I mean, obviously, if they're going to show up on a Sunday or if they're going to show up on a Wednesday night, we always want it to feel warm and friendly. But I think that Wednesday night is a really, really good opportunity for these students who, at their formative age can develop a sense of an understanding of what the church really is. You can agree with me here on this or not, that we don't necessarily see a Wednesday night as church. That, we actually want them to be encouraged to come to church, whether that be through the youth group on Sunday mornings or if they're actually attending main services with their parents.
Not to cut you off, but you would say that it is an expression of the church.
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an expression of the
yeah.
church in that we really want them to get a sense of community.
Yeah.
To be able to see one another as brothers and sisters in the faith if they profess Christ. Yeah. And honestly, it's just a really, really great time where they can ask those difficult questions and they can come to us with, how they can grow in their faith.
Sure. Just practically walk me through a Wednesday night. Like what comes first and at what time and like
so
what do y'all do?
usually what we have, here at the Grace Baptist campus is we've got what's called Boffo Burger. So that's our burger ministry. And we really provide that to the entire campus to, facilitate good food.
Because we have parents dropping kids off at Awana, and so anyone up there participates in that.
Yeah, and the parents, they also volunteer their time in cooking the burgers, and it's just a really, really great opportunity to see everybody out there. But then what we'll do is we'll invite the students in, and they, based on their grade, they'll go into their respective rooms. Christian will go into the high school room, and I'll go into the junior high room.
What time does that start?
Usually around 6:30, yeah.
So you have Boffo from what?
5:15 to 6:15.
5:15 to 6:15.
Yeah, full
and then
hour.
You start the program at 6:30.
Yeah, we start the program at 6:30. We usually do announcements, just sort of like icebreaker, just get to have the kids warm up a little bit.
Yeah.
And right now we've been sort of doing this back and forth of every other week we'll have combined worship, and then on the weeks that we don't, we'll do a game. So it's just alternating, just kind of allowing there to be some sort of variety.
Sure.
And then after that, we'll do the teachings based on whatever series either the high school ministry or the junior high ministry is going through.
Sweet.
Sometimes those are book studies, sometimes they're topical issues, And then after that, we will break out always into grace groups. And this is different because we mentioned earlier in this episode that we do grace groups on Sunday evenings. And what that is essentially parents who open up their homes to have us do gatherings every other Sunday. But grace groups directly after the message is an opportunity to reflect on what the students just learned. So they have the time to sit down and talk with their leaders about what the message really was talking about. And then prayer requests. And then after that, it's just sort of it goes back to a place of everybody's just hanging out in the TSC lobby and playing football or talking.
Hanging till what, 8:30?
Yeah, 8:30.
Man, some of these kids, I got to kick them out at like 9.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So I'm
Which
looking,
I love. I think it's great.
I'm looking to our students here, and so you're all upperclassmen, right? And you've certainly experienced a lot of midweek gatherings. What effect has that had on your life in high school?
Personally, for me, it's been really great. Honestly, my week is either pre-Wednesday or post-Wednesday. Sunday and Wednesday are the focal points of my week because all of my friends are here. I know a lot of people in the youth group, and it's great to see a lot of people who have stayed for multiple years and who I've been able to become friends with. Like, Alessandra and I knew each other in 4th grade in, like, the little, like,
Sunday
youth
school.
group. Yeah, Sunday school. And then in, like, Route 5 and 6. But we didn't really become friends until... It was like right before COVID. But we've been friends for all of high school.
Isn't that
And,
funny how
like,
that works?
in the church,
You can actually be living adjacent to somebody or living parallel lives, and then it's suddenly like, oh, you're still here. I'm still here. We should get to know each
You're
other.
kind of
hang
a cool
out.
person. Let's hang out.
Yeah. No, that's great. So, I mean, you've seen the benefit of that sort of gathering and those touching points. How has that helped you on a typical, say, Tuesday or Thursday or Monday at school? How has that encouraged you?
Yeah, it's really great. I mean, like, Mondays is right after Sunday church, so it helps me reorient my life and recall what I learned on Sunday, what I'm thinking about. Sometimes I do, like, a devotional Sunday morning. It just really helps reorient my life because I go to public school and being in the things of Christ and not living only in the public school sphere.
Yeah, it gives you kind of a different context. That helps your identity, gives you a community. Yeah, I know that's an encouragement for so many students. Alessandra, do you have anything to say to that?
When you're like in a daily, like, worldly environment, like often in school, and just like kind of being used to how people are out in the world, it's nice to sort of come back and it feels like a family.
Yeah.
and you're just like, okay, I'm back with my people, the
Yeah.
people that I know are like holding me accountable, the people who love me, the people who I can be praying for. It's really nice.
Yeah, I love that.
Amen.
Love that. Andrew, you got any thoughts?
I do agree with what both of them said, that the fellowship is completely, it's key to any Christian's life. So especially as a teenager, as an adolescent in your youth, it's even more important because you're building this basis and you're gathering around people who you could be with for longer, but even being around that environment growing up will inspire you to seek that also as a young adult and going on in life. And when you're around that atmosphere that influences you, right? Because I forget the verse, but how two people can't go on a path without first agreeing. So when you're with someone who's going the opposite way, chances are you're going to go that way too. So when you're with someone who wants to go the right way, who wants to choose Christ, that's the way that you're going to go. And your life is going to be so much more of a blessing when you do that. And youth ministry grants you the opportunity to be around so many people who are going to inspire you to choose that.
So your life really has been enriched by the relationships.
Yeah, I would
here.
say there's quite a lot of good relationships that it has brought about. And even Christians teaching has also been an inspiration, and just the atmosphere there that it does give, that's very relative and also very applicable to everyday life. That's it's very interactive, and I appreciate it a lot.
Love that. Okay, so that's, you kind of explained the Wednesday night context. What happens Sunday morning? The church is gathered. You have that first hour for junior high and high school. What are you doing there?
Sunday morning has kind of been seen as almost like the stepchild of youth ministry, almost. Where
you want to explain that?
Yeah, I'm going to explain that. It's because there's a lot of hype on Wednesday. I think all students, for the most part, are more so night people. They like hanging out at night. Early morning is not their jam, right? Could you agree with me? Early morning is not your jam? Okay.
For sure.
So,
Because it's the morning?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I love mornings, but
Just not Sunday morning.
I am a night person.
I just feel like there's more energy.
yeah,
on
there's
Wednesdays.
there's more energy
I
on
get
a
that.
Wednesdays. 8:45, like students are strolling in. You could tell that they just woke up 20 minutes ago. Not by they look, just by their demeanor, right? And so they look tired. And when you kind of walk in to like the TSC building, we try and do everything that we can to at least all right, let's listen to some music. Playing ping pong
tables out, yeah.
air hockey, right?
Sure.
Let's get like the blood flowing. I know that we're waking up early, but our approach to Sundays has been a little bit different because we're not trying to compete with a Wednesday night. I'm not trying to do that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I want a particular purpose to what we're trying to accomplish on Sunday morning, which not take away from main service.
Well, I was going to follow up with that. That's right, because you're also
Yeah.
encouraging them to invest themselves
Exactly.
into the corporate gathering.
Yeah, and that's something that we communicate to parents all the time is
We are not the church.
We're not
This is an
church.
expression of the church. That's
Yeah.
right.
go to church,
Yes.
be a part of the local body called
Right.
Grace Baptist.
Yeah.
And so the way that I've done that is not give them another sermon. I think that's like super key is I'm not trying to give them another sermon, but our approach now for Sundays has been let me teach you for yourself how to study the Bible.
Yes.
And so
So it's practical. It's
very
participative.
practical. Yeah. And they hate that maybe. Like they hate the fact that I will stand up there for like 3 minutes not saying anything, but just ask and provoke questions of them. Because, and I was even telling the junior high students today,
Yeah.
I was communicating to them like you are going to get out of it what you're going to put in.
Yeah.
And when you put in the time to actually ask questions of God's word,
Yeah.
God will show you how he wants you to live faithfully.
Now, Matt, you're in your kind of first year of ministry,
Yeah.
and you're figuring yourself out in the pulpit.
Yeah.
What has some of your experiences been as you're teaching students? Because, dude, I know this. They're brutal.
Yeah.
They'll just tell you with their face or their words.
Oh yeah,
Right?
100%. They'll tell you that you stink. No, I think the Lord has been very kind to me in just my exposure because I've been interning under Christian for about like the past year and a half or so, and so I've already had a consistent exposure to what a Wednesday night, a Sunday morning, a Sunday night looks like. But I will say, having that accountability and that responsibility to always have something prepared and to be honest and to do it to the best of your ability by the Spirit, it's a weight, definitely. But I think it only becomes an unbearable weight if you're doing it for yourself, you're not doing it for the Lord.
Yeah,
And so,
sure.
at my young age, still being in college, I think that, guys who are pursuing pastoral ministry have this opportunity to think, if it's meant to be, it's up to me. And I've really rejected that mindset as time has gone on, and I've said to myself, no, this this is not going to grow unless the Lord's hand is upon it.
Absolutely,
And so,
yeah.
I mean, I've got this like little flashcard thing of a prayer that I wrote down that I'm always praying for the junior high ministry, that I would never assume it to be my own, but
Right.
that it is always the Lord's, and everything that I do, I'm accountable for. There have been moments where I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that.
Sure.
Like I could have done this better. But there have just been moments that sometimes I'll go on my way home from a Wednesday night youth group, like I'll get emotional and I'll just get teary-eyed because there are just things where I'm studying throughout the week over a message, and sometimes you sit to yourself and you're like, how is this going to apply to a junior high student?
Mm-hmm.
And then there will be like that one kid who comes up to you and something in their life happens particularly, and the Spirit uses that as a means to reach that student and for the gospel in that way to pierce into the heart of a student and allow them to see that God does care about them. It is one of the most rewarding things ever.
You're also recognizing in all that you're saying
Yeah.
that proper ministry is not just that moment of teaching, but it is highly relational.
Yeah.
And so if you're not taking the pulpit or God's word and using it as a helm to drive into the hearts and minds of people that you mean to move forward or towards in relationship, then what are we doing? We're just preaching sermons for the sake of preaching sermons, and that is not what we're called to as pastors.
Yeah, and I think especially at the junior high age, I mean, I don't know if this works with high schoolers as well, but if they don't trust your character, they're not going to listen to a single word that you say.
Absolutely.
And so much of youth ministry right now, especially in this age, is being transparent.
Yeah.
There are so many kids who have come up and said, I love the fact that you're transparent with us, that you don't put on a show, that you don't hide anything.
Yeah.
And I think that if we're going to call them to live to how the gospel calls us to live, then we need to be constantly living that out.
And you're also facilitating not just the relationship and the trust between yourself and those students, you're also trying to facilitate that relationship with one another, that they would come together and they would begin to exercise their spiritual giftedness and move towards one another for the sake of discipleship. I'm going to kick it over to our students here for a second.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, what advice would you give to a high schooler or junior higher that is finding it difficult to find a place in the youth ministry? It's intimidating. You walk into the room on a Wednesday night or a Sunday morning, and what would you tell those students?
I mean, this is probably like obvious, but honestly, just like putting yourself out there. And I know that that's a lot more pressure than just saying it is. But a lot of it is on the students that are already in the youth group. And I would say just to work on being welcoming towards those students and noticing who's new and like not familiar faces and sort of being intentional to let them know that like this is a place where we want you to feel at home and we want you to feel welcome.
Now I'm going to ask you to be vulnerable here, okay? How do you feel like we're doing?
It's gotten better.
Okay.
I have been able to see that. And I think because there's been a lot more conversations between leaders and like Christian and Matt and stuff with students who are like here all the time and being like, you guys are students, but you're also like leaders within the youth.
Yeah, sure.
And like we're called to be an example and to show love.
It is your ministry,
Yeah.
right? It is your opportunity to exercise those gifts and to have those relationships. And what you're recognizing when you're saying, look, we're getting better, we're recognizing that there's always room to do better when it comes to building relationship and moving towards one another with discipleship at the center. You're always raising up leaders, right? Christian, Matt?
Oh, yeah.
Students, I know that maybe you don't think of this in the forefront of probably your approach, but you're also raising up leaders. You become, as upperclassmen, points of reference for younger students to look at and to think to themselves, I want to be that, right? And you're always leading, you're always preaching, you're always modeling and teaching and so on and so forth. And so that is what you're doing. But Christian, I mean, you are intentionally sowing in leadership principles to volunteer staff, to actual students, but also parents.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me about that third one?
Yeah. It says in our mission statement, we exist to partner with parents, and that's because we firmly believe that parents are the primary disciple makers of the home.
Yeah.
And so what that looks like on the everyday basis and how we can actually partner with parents is I encourage parents, come on to some Wednesday night things. Our youth event for Wednesday, like I'm saying, parents come so that you could actually be a part of what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I tell leaders when we're communicating to grace groups, I'm not the one, I can't talk to every single parent in the world, but I can empower leaders to be the extension of Grace Baptist staff to the parents, and you can talk to them, send emails to them, pray for their student, ask them for prayer requests for them. And so that's one of the ways that parents can partner with us, is actually communicating and being a part of the Grace Group homes where they're interacting with leaders and other parents as well, because they're all part of a group.
Can I just ask a question? Keep going. And I don't know if this is currently true. I know it has been true. What do you do with the students who they don't have believing parents?
Yeah, how
does the church?
That's a good question.
Move close to them.
Yeah, I think honestly, the hardest part about that is if they don't know that we're asking for them to come, then I'm never going to hear from them, right?
What do you mean?
Those parents oftentimes are just dropping students off because they want them to be a part of a youth group, but there's not actually an intentional mindset in their thinking to say, I want to be a part.
Sure.
It's hard to go after those parents when they technically don't want to be found that much, if you get what I'm saying.
Sure. But they do appreciate people loving their kids.
Exactly. And so one of the ways I think it's really talking to the student and finding out those students who don't have parents who are involved. And then I ask them, hey, like, what do your parents do? Like, do your parents go to a church?
Yeah.
And the students are very honest. They'll be like, yeah, my mom or dad goes to this church, or no, my parents actually don't go to church at all. I was brought here by a friend, but my parents allow me to come here on a Wednesday or Sunday. Yeah. And it's really connecting with those students that will hopefully kind of infiltrate the home to say, hey, I care about your student, and therefore I care about you.
Yeah. Students, do you have friends who are Christians, but they have unbelieving parents?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Like in the youth group, there are.
And so I imagine for them, the youth ministry is going to mean something in a way that's different than those who are raised in a Christian home, sure. Right?
I mean, a lot of us are still here that we all grew up together. Like me and Rachel, like there's a lot of us that like, oh, I've known you since I was like 5.
Yeah.
But like it's refreshing to see students come that aren't kind of used to the Christian life of like living just kind of as a routine to like come to church and like, this has just kind of always existed, so that's the way that it is. And I feel like that tends to happen a lot with like being raised in a Christian home for a lot of students. Yeah. It just becomes routine. And seeing students that didn't grow up in that environment sort of kind of get a taste of the gospel for themselves.
Yeah.
And have that desire.
So usually, why do students who have unbelieving parents, who were raised in an unbelieving home, why do they end up at Grace Baptist? Is it because friends like yourselves are inviting them, or how does that work?
Yeah, a lot of times it's friends just like, oh, we go to the same school, like, are you busy tonight? Let's come to my youth group. Or they're dealing with something sometimes, and it'll just be encouraging to be like, hey, maybe being in this environment will help you.
It's a big mission field.
Yeah.
It's probably the biggest, most immediate mission field that we have, our children and our students.
Oh, yeah.
I really do think the gate in those scenarios are the students. If we can do the best we can to interact and be intentional with those students who we know have unbelieving parents, and we always use them as almost like a microphone to the family, like, hey, how's your parents doing? Tell them I say hello.
Yeah.
I think even that level of communication from student to their parents, it does speak a lot of who we are. And hopefully my prayer is that will actually provide opportunities where I'm struggling in this area as a parent. Can we talk? Right. That's what I hope. We can build relationships in that way. I do think the student is the gate to that.
Okay, 2 hypotheticals here. Sure. Say we have some listeners and they'd like to get involved and serve in the youth ministry. What do they do?
Yeah, so you would contact either Christian Delgado, myself, or Katie James through the Grace Baptist website, through, if you are on Instagram, on the Grace Student Ministry social media, and just say, hey, I'm interested in bringing my kid to youth group. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Or, maybe you send us an email and you say, hey, like, I want to serve, I want to volunteer. What does that look like? And usually we'll give you a concise response. We always expect that, like, if you are going to want to be as involved as you say that you are, that like we'll have you fill out like an application. Just get some base level information. That way we have an understanding of who you are, whether or not you're involved in an ABF at the church, just like the level of your consistency in attending Grace Baptist.
That's good to hear. So there's a process, and we definitely are vetting the people that are working with our students.
We want to make sure that the environment, not to say that people wouldn't be safe that want to volunteer, but we want to make sure that this is the safest possible environment for the students and for the parents.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that everybody has the right intentions when they come to serve, that they're not doing it to necessarily feel good about themselves, but to help work, to continue to build up the church.
So there's an application process, there's an interview, there's a live scan.
Yeah.
For everybody, right?
Yeah, and you got to read a lot of documents with us.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like Grace Baptist, if you even becoming a member, there's like our social value statement.
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
we have a lot of documents, but I think particular to us is we have to have you read a child protection policy,
Right. Yep.
fill out an application, get a live scan done, do volunteer training,
Yep.
reporter training, and that takes a good amount of time. And
Because
that
we take
requires we take it seriously.
Take it
Yeah.
seriously. That's right.
We take
very
it seriously.
extensive.
We want to protect our students. We want to protect our families. We really do believe in having a credibility to our ministry.
And then lastly, you just give it the good old fashioned gut check.
Yeah.
So maybe they would do all the process, and then at the end of the day, Matt or Christian are like, no, it's not gonna. I'm not
Test the
feeling it.
spirits to
I
know if
always
they're
say
from
I
God.
reserve the right to let you know whether
Yeah.
this is going to work out or not.
As you well should, my friend.
And that's because I think student ministry takes a level of gifting, of relatability,
Yep.
Yeah.
of teaching and concising theological terminology and doctrine in a way that is palatable for students.
Yep.
That's exciting. People need to be engaging. So it is a unique ministry where you got to have some gifts. Now, there's always a place. Like, God can use any type of person.
Yeah.
The one thing that I always use to recruit volunteers, whoever wants to serve in ministry, I just ask them, do you want to make disciples?
Yeah.
Very simply, that's it.
I
That's
literally
it.
say, I'm like, do you want to make disciples?
That's it.
Because that's what we're doing.
Because if you want them to think that you're cool, if
Yes.
you want them to
Yeah.
it's just that's not what we're.
It's
here
not
for.
going to work.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So that's always what I lead with is if you want to make disciples, then
Yeah.
let's talk about what it looks like to serve in our
And then
ministry.
lastly, students, I'm going to look to you. Let's say that I have some parents listening to this. I'm assuming that probably parents are going to listen to this instead of high school students, but who knows? And they're having a hard time integrating into the youth ministry. It's a Wednesday night. Where should they go? They're dropped off or they drive themselves. What do they do? It's 5:30. They're on campus.
Don't go in the bathroom. Stay out where people can talk to you. Because I know a lot of people. Okay, I'll talk about it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was-
a lot of girls. Let me
But I was like, right, but what if they have to go to the bathroom? Like, what if,
You cannot go to the bathroom.
No. Okay. Well, okay. That's why I was explaining myself.
okay, go ahead.
You will listen to the
that
entire
was the
sermon.
best hook I have ever heard.
Yeah.
'Cause
We're
that
going to
was-
put that as a motto and trademark it. Do not go to the bathroom.
My friend, we are not editing that out. We gotta
That was so good. Please continue. I'm so
but I
curious.
hear what you're saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
a lot of the girls will go into the bathroom because they're nervous about meeting people.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put themselves out there and they feel like they can't relate to people. But if you even just find one person you know or you've seen around or you know something about them, go up and compliment them.
And I imagine,
Say, I love your hair.
I imagine
I love
you're
your
the type,
shoes.
you're the type of person that they could look to.
I would hope so.
And walk up to.
I
right?
try.
Yeah,
What a humble answer. I love
that's
it.
true. But that's also true for not just our staff, right? Our volunteer staff, and then students such as yourselves, right? And I know that we're on a podcast and they don't necessarily have a face to apply to a name, but that's the culture that we're building.
Yeah.
Well, hey, students, thanks for being here. I appreciate your time and your ministry because it is your ministry, right? And Matt, Christian, love you guys. It's a real brotherhood we have going on, yeah?
We do too.
Yeah.
We like serving together. I appreciate you.
Okay, folks, thanks so much for streaming in. Hopefully you're able to join us next time for another episode of Magnify. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe to Magnify Podcast so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. We would love to hear from you, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask in our mailbag, you can email them to magnify@gracebaptist.org, and we will answer them on the show. Thank you so much for streaming.